Okay, this video lesson is about the structure of an atom, or the anatomy. Basically, there are three parts: the electrons, the neutrons, and the protons. I want you to see in this picture the location. The neutrons and the protons are in the center in a place we call the nucleus. Here's what the nucleus is. The electrons are not in the center, but they are on the outside, near the outside of the atom, in a place called the electron cloud. Electrons are much smaller than neutrons and protons. Electrons have charge, a negative charge, and protons have positive charge. Okay, so a proton has positive charge. It's important to know that the number of protons in an atom is what identifies the atom. For example, a hydrogen atom always has exactly one proton. It might have a different number of neutrons or different number of electrons, but a hydrogen atom has to have one proton. Helium has two, lithium has three, so on and so on. The number of protons is equal to the atomic number. It has about the same mass as a neutron. If you change the number of protons, which can happen but it doesn't often, if you do that, you'll change what type of element it is. A neutron is also in the nucleus. It does not have a charge. It has the same mass as a proton, and the number of neutrons can be different in different elements. It changes the mass, but not the actual type of atom. And electrons have a negative charge, and they're mostly what contributes to chemical properties and reactivity of an atom. If it's a neutral atom, it's equal to the atomic number. They have mass, but it's very small, and when the electron number changes, it changes the charge of the atom. Okay, there's a few important numbers we got to learn about here. One's called the atomic number. It's equal to the number of protons. You can find it on the periodic table. It's a whole number, and it's the number that identifies what atom it is. For example, lithium is always a 3. Helium is always a 2. Its atomic number 2 means it has 2 protons. This is the mass number. Over here we're talking about mass number, and the mass number is actually not on the periodic table. There is a number below that's called the atomic mass, but that is not the mass number. The mass number is not there. The way you get it is by adding how many protons and how many neutrons there are in the nucleus. If you add those together, that gives you the mass number, and it's always a whole number. And then the third number is the atomic mass. That is the number that is on the periodic table. It's usually a decimal number. It's not a whole number, but it represents an average of several different isotopes of an element, and we're going to learn more about that in the next lesson. Okay, so we're going to look at the notation you have to learn for. It's called the isotopic notation. And so the element symbol, this is sodium, Na. The number above, there's two numbers here, above and below. The top number is the mass number, which is the number of protons plus neutrons. The bottom number is the atomic number, which is the number of protons. And then there's often a number over here that might be a plus 1, plus 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, etc. It's the charge. So, for example, how many protons, neutrons, and electrons are in the sodium atom above? Well, the number of protons is equal to the atomic number, so it's 11. The number of neutrons is equal to the mass number, because the mass number is the protons plus neutrons. The number of neutrons is equal to the mass number minus the atomic number. So 23 minus 11 equals 12. That's the number of neutrons. And the number of electrons is equal to, you have to get the electrons by looking at the charge. If it was a neutral atom with a 0 charge, then the protons and the electrons are the same number. But this has a positive charge, which means it has one more proton than electrons, since protons are positive. So if there's one more proton than electron, there must be 10 electrons. Here's another example. Write the notation for an atom that has 50 protons, 69 neutrons, and 48 electrons. So 50 protons means the bottom number is going to be a 50. The top number, it says 69. The top number is the mass number, which is the protons plus the neutrons. So 50 plus 69 is 119. And the number of electrons, or the number for the charge over here, to get the symbol of the charge, we're going to have to use the number of electrons and protons. There's 2 more protons than electrons. So that means the charge has to be positive 2. So I'm going to write a little plus 2 here. Now all I've done here is write the numbers from the symbol and not the element name. To get the element name, you need the periodic table. So our periodic table, if you look at it, this says number 50. That's the atomic number. You need to go to the periodic table and find number 50, and it's right here, SN. SN means 10. So you just write an SN. So 119 for the mass number, 50 for the atomic number, positive 2 for the charge. And then the last example here, 16 protons, so the bottom number is a 16. 16 neutrons, so 16 plus 16 is 32 for the top number, mass number. And the number of electrons looks like it's 2 more than the number of protons. Electrons are negative, so there has to be 2 extra negative charges, so you put a charge of negative 2. And then to figure out what the actual symbol that goes here, you look in the periodic table for the number of protons, 16. And 16 is S, sulfur. So you type in, or you write in S.